again, we talked about working with APIs. We talked about the different conversations of playing with APIs. And yeah, I might also do the same. Just show you how to use the APIs more. Like what I mean by that is that I can then show you how to write JavaScript code to communicate with these different kind of APIs that we talked about. But the last class sort of introduced the concepts, right? The varying concepts of APIs. Like I said, API, you have your REST. For REST, it leverages majorly on the method. So you have get, you have post, you have patch, you have put, you have delete. Those are methods of the API. Then we have CRUD. I also talked about something called CRUD, right? Which is CRUD. That is create. Create is a post. Create is a post. Uses the post method. Your read is a get method, right? While your update can be a patch or a put method. While the which is the delete, that is the delete can also be, there's a method called delete, and that is what the matching of what your REST, it leverages on methods, the HTTP methods. And HTTP method is a big thing because we have HTTP methods, we have HTTP methods, we have HTTP status. How many of us know? I've heard about HTTP status before. You've heard about like a 200, 201, 400, 500. Those are what HTTP status, and they are standards, right? It's not just like maybe one developer that created them. They are standards. They are there, right? Your 200 is successful request, while your 201 is what a successfully create. So what this means is that if you do a post, which is a create, because I've said like a post is a create. For those of you who are following, a post is a create, right? And if the creation was successful, the developer or the backend should return a 201 method or status code. And what that means is that the resource was successfully created. I'll share my screen briefly to just buttress more on HTTP status code, HTTP method within the REST APIs. Does that make sense for those who are listening? So that is what HTTP status code, HTTP. So I'm just going to maybe share my screen roughly, and then we sort of just play with the different kind of APIs that are possible, and from there I can take questions. If you have any JavaScript questions, any area that you want me to any area that you want me to explain better, I can sort of like explain them better. So just let me know once you can see my screen. Let me share my screen briefly. And I'm sharing my entire screen. You should be seeing my entire screen now. So this is a kind of some set of APIs that I've created for us to like play with, in a sense, for us to sort of understand the different things. So here on the screen, you can see that for every API, like I said, I think I talked about this in the last class, that there must be a documentation that guides the operation. So here there is a documentation that guides it. So anytime you're working with any developer, like the first thing you must always be asking is the documentation, right? The documentation to the API. And here is a documentation to this particular API. So you have what are the things that we can do with this API? It means that there are some resources. These things here, they are resources. So you have tasks, you have products, right? You have posts, right? You have analytics. If you want to get analytics, then you have what the authentications, and then you have what some webhooks, right? If you want to play with webhooks. So these are the resources. But you'll notice as I open each of the resources, they have what methods. So this is get, post, get, patch, and what delete. You can see the get is what is going to fetch everything. This here fetches everything. And then if you want to test it, you can come here, click on it and test. And this is what the base URL. You can see here, this is the base URL. And it also gives you what some ways to see, like here you can click on and it will give you code for what each one of them if you want to get code. So if I want to get the Axios code, right, or if I want to get the JavaScript Axios code, so it will be showing me what an example of this implementation within what Axios. So if I click on this here, now it will tell me that this is get. That is, this will get all the resource, and when it gets all the resource, this will be the shape of the resource. So it means that what this is the data that is returned, and then you can see that what it is array of data that is returned, and you can see here which is what 200. 200 tells you that what the request you made was what successful, right? And then we have what we have 422. 422 will tell us that if there is what an error, and this is how the error will look like. So you see something called success to be false, and you see this word error field. And then the error field will tell you whatever is happening, and it will tell us that what there's an invalid type, or there's what the ID, and it will say what, okay, I'm expecting string, and we'll receive what undefined, something like that. So we always get what something that looks like this if there's an error. And then the query params, when you hear query params, what this means is that I can then make this API call. Let me make an example. So I'm going to use my terminal to make API call. In terminal, we can use call, or we can use what HTTP as an example to make what HTTP to make API calls. So if I change this to terminal, I think I can come to here and see shell. If I see shell here, so you can see call, or you can see HTTP right there. So I can. So if I want to make this on my terminal now, so I can copy this and take it to my terminal, right, and paste this here, and this makes the API call. And then you would see that again, it is returning the exact same thing that you said it's going to return. That is, to return what array of things inside array of objects. And each of the objects is archived, children, and these are the details of all the things that is being returned. And then when it's done, it will return meta. You can see that what below it, you now have what another result called meta. Meta is what details about, do we have next page? Do we have a previous page? What is the limit that we are fetching? Then which page are we currently on? Then what is the total number of records that we are dealing with now? And then what is the total number of pages? So if I want to fetch page 2 of this API call now, I can now say what? I can now use all, or I can use the page. And all will be what? Is either it is Boolean or it is null. So for every API like this, you will always get a deep breakdown of like what is going on. And I can pass page, I can pass limit, I can pass status. So if I want to fetch by status now, it means that what let's say I want to test it here in the browser, I can then go by saying what status, give me to-dos that are what in progress. And that is status, and you can see that it is enabled or not enabled. And if I send this request now by pressing send, you would see now that it will now give me only to-dos that are in what, or tasks that are in progress. You can see that all the tasks are in progress, and that is what query param. And the equivalent again is I can copy the code. I think there's a place to copy the code for this same one that I did here. There should be a place to copy the code. Okay, so this is a code snippet. So this is the code snippet of this now, and give me in HTTP. And then it can give me this. It's not correct. So it should give me, I think it should be query like this, and I can say status, right? Status is equals to in progress, in underscore progress. So this is what me using my terminal to make the API call. No match for HTTP. The correct HTTP. I didn't get that. The correct HTTP. in the query. I think, let's say it should work. Whether it is one or not, I think one should work, and then we can make this double here, and then it should work here. I think so. Yeah, so now what's the error? It said invalid, expected one of to do in progress. So what did I now send to you? Is that not in progress? So it means that, okay, this is how it's expecting me to send it. So you can see now that what using this word HTTP get, and then in status, and this returns what 10, it will return 10 records. These are the headers or your request or response header. And then another thing that you should pay attention to here is what there is rate limiting. If you know what rate limiting means. So rate limiting is like, maybe I'll come back to rate limiting later, but let me just kind of explain what this API and how to just play with this API. So if I want to copy the JavaScript code for this one now, I can then switch this one to maybe like just come here, switch it to like a Axios, right? And then it will give us some code for us to kind of like fetch. So you can see here, you have a kind of code that you can copy here, and then we can put that into like a index.js file and run it with Node.js behind the scene. So again, this is a documentation that what I personally, because I was the one who built this, provided. So if you're working with any API from anybody, maybe from another backend or from a team, you need to ask them and say, okay, where is the documentation that they have, prepared for here's the documentation that they have prepared in a sense for this particular word API. So that is status like that. Here you can use all. If you want to fetch all, you turn this to what? To true, right? If you want to fetch this again, and then you can send this request, and then you can see that it will fetch, but you will notice that it is fetching as many records as possible. But the key is that every one of them is going to be in progress. In progress. So this is again, understanding how to play with API. So for you to be able to write code for API, you at least need to understand what that API is doing. These are the response header. The same thing I showed you in the terminal. These are the response headers, right? And this is the request header. I think it's just one request header. Then there are cookies. So this is the way to see all the things that are happening. And if you want to copy the code for that same operation, this is the way to copy it. And if you want to search, let's say we don't want to use status, we want to search. I think the search is maybe searching the name and maybe the name and title. I can't remember. Let's say we want to search to-dos that have maybe that their name contains maybe team or something, and then it's going to search. It's going to use that opportunity to search, and it's going to return. So you can see that there is in the description here, there is team, right? In the description, there is team, and then it's going to return. And because I have all enabled, so it is returning all thing here. And if you want to see the code for this with fetch, you can also see the code for this with fetch as well. So this is the fetch code for this, and then you can copy this. And if you copy this, you can take it into the browser. We can take it into the browser and put it inside our JavaScript console here. And since it is fetch here, we can do a .then, and then we have some results, right? And then you can do result.json, convert it to a JSON. And then if there's a catch, because it's a promise, right? We can do a catch if there's an error, and then we can do a console.log error.message if there's anything that looks like that. And now this will run, and then it will just show pending, and it's not going to show anything, right? But if you check your network tab, you would see that it ran that thing, and then it returns some operation. So for us to see the result in a console, right, we then want to write another .then, right? You need to do another .then, and then if we now get a result right now, and then we can say console.log the result, and then you can close it there, and now it will show pending, and then it will log 145 records object, right there. So this is me using what just vanilla JavaScript to what to make API call to the same API that this is doing, and you can see that what it is doing all to be true, and search, the search term that we are using is called what team, that way. So that is fetching all the tasks. But if you want to fetch a single task, right, there's another provision to fetch a single task. You can see this is a provision to fetch a single task. Okay, this is a provision to fetch the single task and the children. This is a provision to fetch what a single task gets. And so if you click on this now, it means that if you know a particular data by their ID, let's say this is the one that we want to fetch now, you copy this ID, you copy this here and put it here. If you put it here and then paste it here, and then you can send, and then that will return what that single one data. And if I want to copy the fetch code for that again, I can copy this as well, right, and take it to what my browser, and then we can also write what JavaScript code to fetch that exact same thing as well. So you can paste the fetch there, and then it will return the data for that one singular data. So you can see how again it's easy for you to what start writing code gradually for what start writing code gradually for all the APIs. Again, I'm telling you that what this is an API that I personally provided. So what you will get might not look like this from your other backend people, but it's because this is again for teaching purpose and all of that, right? That's why what I provided this full guideline for you. So this is the documentation. These are all the things that you can do on the API with your task. This is the products, this is post, this is authentications. If you are dealing with anything webhook, this is how to deal with webhook. Then for the GraphQL, right, this is the GraphQL related stuff. For analytics, this is analytics stuff. And then for WebSockets, these are the stuff that what we can do with the API. Yeah, so I've shown you a small example. I might want to write more code, but I don't know if anybody has any question before I go further. Do we have any question, or do you understand? Do we understand? Do we have questions regarding APIs? Questions? Do we have questions? Do we have questions, or do we understand just that basic the basic intro to playing with APIs in a sense, for those who have been following? So you can use the thumbs up if you can use the emoji to do a thumbs up if you cannot speak. But this, let me know if there is anything. For those who joined in the middle, do you want any clarification and all of that? So that's just, again, that's just API. It's just a sample introduction to, there's the API that we want to talk to. There is a documentation that has been made available for us, and then you can either talk to the API using your terminal. What is the difference between REST API and GraphQL? Okay, beautiful. For those who were around last class, were you around in the last extra class that we did, Abubakar? Were you around in the last extra class that we did? For those who were around in the last class, did anybody get the difference? Was there anybody around that got the difference between GraphQL and REST? Did anybody get the difference between GraphQL and REST? Anybody? Or anybody knows the difference between GraphQL and REST? Okay, so I'm probably going to show you and share my screen with you to sort of like give you a difference between what GraphQL and REST means. So I'm going to share my screen again briefly, and then we can quickly look at how we see my screen. Yeah. So if you look at this API here, it gives us what? The API reference, which is this one here that I opened, right? And it also gives us what? It says that what? There is what? A GraphQL, right? And then if you click on this, it will take you to what? This page. And you will see that what? It cannot load the page and all of that here. So, but it gives us an example that you can copy. Like if you take this example now, take this and put it in the terminal. If you put this in the terminal and paste it in the terminal, right, you will see it will return some information back to us, and that is us talking to what? GraphQL. So the thing with GraphQL is that GraphQL is always post method. GraphQL request, they are always post method. And for this API here, our GraphQL, so this is HTTP. If I want to make the request again, HTTP, it is always post. And the endpoint is what? HTTP / what API dot what dot dev forward slash what forward slash GraphQL. So that is the endpoint. That is the endpoint. And what that means is that no, if you send it here, it's not going to return anything, right? Because for GraphQL is expecting us to pass an information. So here you can always pass an information and say, okay, data like this, and pass it what this object, and then this is to return, you know, queries, right? Whatever queries that we have, right? And then if you send this, let's say we send this here, it should return a valid query. Escape it and send us. Why you know working? Let's see. I know we don't need this. Do we need this content type? Default content type is this. But let's be sure that, let me check the call that we did earlier. The call I did earlier was past this. I can say, I think it's expecting an object. It's expecting an object of something that looks like this. Bad request. Let me take whatever we had before. Let me tell it to give me this. Take this request. Take this request and give me the HTTP version of this. Let's do this and then switch to here. I need to start a new conversation. Should have to give me a new HTTP version of that. Okay, so let's run this in the terminals and then it should work now. All right. It's still showing an error. It did not work, but at least it returns an error now. It says that expected name from this. Let me try this other one, whether it will work. I can tell you that it's still failing. Syntax error, expected name, found query string. If this is working, then I don't know why the others will not work. So if this is not working, but the call is working, at least I can be sure that the call is working. So this is using call to make what GraphQL call. So what does GraphQL, like what's the real difference between the REST and GraphQL? Like I said, GraphQL uses method of post all through, and it has a system, a style of you sending GraphQL, right? And the system or the style is what I want to show you. So there are, just like we have this interface to test REST endpoint, we can always have our interface for GraphQL or a playground. So one of the popular ones is if you search for GraphQL public playgrounds, right? There will be public playgrounds that we can use, like different public playgrounds. So you have what Apollo has a GraphQL public playground that we can use. These people have a public playground that you can use. GitHub has their own. You can see, so different companies have what their public playground that what you can use. Okay, and if you click on this and go here, it will take us to Apollo, what their own playground. So if you launch a playground, let's see, you launch a playground, and so you would see what the playground sort of like looks like. I have a popular one that I usually use, which is called Altier. So it is web.altier, right? So that's This is the one I personally use. It's a public, you just go to this and you make sure that you put the endpoint of GraphQL inside of this place. And you put it there, then you always go to this place here. So here, you close this here. So here is you just see it empty. Like this. This is that's what you see, right? This just queries that right on my page. And then you see the documentation. The documentation has different documentation. You see what query, mutation, and subscription. Query, mutation, and subscription. So now you will see a difference because in REST, it was talking about methods and each of the resources. But in GraphQL, we're only dealing with what? Queries, mutation, and subscription. For those who were around in the last class or the last extra class that we kind of like did, we said that query represents what? Query represents what? All the things that you want to read. In CRUD, C-U-R-D, the read means you want to read something. You want to, read a particular thing. And that is what the R of the C-R-U-D, CRUD, C-R-U-D, create, read, update, and delete. But that R there is representing query. And if you click on query here in the GraphQL, it will now tell you all the things that you can do. It's telling you that you can say, well, you can read account, you can read single account, you can read post, you can read tasks, you can read request sessions, all the resources. That's by the GraphQL version of them. And let's scale this up. We can always like to clear this and copy this here to make request your call back like this. So you can say that it's expecting. So here is the idea of the take here. Task requires offsets. This is have ID, right? Or the title of what the title or name of the task and what the description. So this is how GraphQL now works here. So if I run this query now and I press enter here, if I send this query, check yourself very well. I only have what. I have the same thing about it's very different. So now it's already description alone for all the tasks that I have. All of them. Fetching next. If you put tasks and you fetch, if you put tasks and you fetch, if I enable call, and let's say I take away this search, you would see that what this is fetching every information. Whether I want to use all of this data or not, it will still fetch all of them. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. That GraphQL allows us to specify the shape of the data that we need. Does that make sense to you, Abubakar? GraphQL, as much as it is built on using post alone, but GraphQL allows us to specify the shape of the data that you want to work with. In that sense, I can specify. You can see in that example, I'm specifying that I want only name and description. And then it is giving me only name and description for all the records that I have. So that way, there is no overfetching or there is no underfetching. Does that make sense to you, Abubakar? You asked the question. So apart from the basic structural difference, where GraphQL works majorly with post, right? And REST works with all of the methods. GraphQL uses query, mutation, and subscription approach to categorize, while REST uses the method to do the things that it's doing. The method is what you have, what it gets to get some requests, to get some resources in REST, post to create, right? We have put, patch to put and patch to to update, then delete to delete, right? And there are still other methods that are not common like that. Whereas in GraphQL, the three major mechanisms is what? Query, mutation, and what? Subscription. Then we now have the way they operate. That is, with GraphQL, you can specify the shape of what you want. So because this is a query operation, I can put query here, and I can even give it a name and say what? All tasks, all tasks, like this. And this will what? I think I think align this. I think I should just send this and it will work. It will work. So what this seconds. This structural difference on this side here. This took how many? This took how many seconds? This took 400 and maybe 420. Maybe some of them are cached, maybe because I made them before, and that's why it is using 424 megabytes. But the size here, which is what 882 kilobytes, right? 82 kilobytes. If you check the size for this one here, this doesn't show the size directly here. But if I check my browser, I can get what the size of this is. The size of this will be reduced in a sense because this contains only name and what description, while the other one contains a list of what all the information that I don't even need, that I'm not going to even use. And somebody would also tell you that you can also do the same thing with REST, but that is not built into REST. But with GraphQL, that is built in to avoid overfetching and to avoid what? Underfetching. Does that make sense? Again, clearly. So that is what very good difference between what your GraphQL and what your REST, right there. And again, for those who are just joining, you can use any public interface. So again, you can see that what this is another one. I'm using Apollo's public sandbox. So long as I have I can always do what I can put my curly brackets here, and you can see tasks, right? Open your curly bracket, you can do your ID. So if it's ID alone that I found here, I can take this here. I need to fetch and return all the ID. And I can now start saying that limit now, because we can also limit, because it allows us to limit. Because if we check the documentation, it tells us that what for tasks, right? If we check for tasks, it says that what give us tasks is saying that what there is offset, there is limit, and there is what other by, and there is okay. So if you want to what limit to 5 now, I can open bracket here and put limit here and say limit this to what just 5 things. So, and the percent basis we talk only 5 records. Right? Because that is not one stream like 5 seconds, and then the method is 200, right? All the method in GraphQL is 200. We can see what the time it took is now 3 to 7 seconds, and then the size will be reduced drastically. The size will be reduced drastically. And if you look at this as well, we can always use what? You can always use limit here as well. If you have been paying attention, we can always use limit as well for this one, because here we can use limit, but it's because I built this into this. But with GraphQL, some of these things come by default into GraphQL. That is, you are able to limit, you're able to do offset. Offset is I think if you do limit and then you can do limit will limit to 5. I think if I limit, I can limit to 5, and then I can do pagination. So here in GraphQL, you can't do pagination. The only way to do pagination is by setting limit and offset. So if I want to, I can set the offset and use that for pagination. And there's another kind of pagination also. GraphQL is very smart. It's just like a smarter version of your REST in a sense. It has its own problem. I mean, I don't need to sweet mouth GraphQL too much, but the idea is that as front-end engineers, I'm giving you this overview for you to be aware of how to make these API calls, whether you're making them. So if I want to make GraphQL now, I think the next question somebody will be asking is, we've seen how to write the code for REST in the browser, in our browser console, right? How do we write for GraphQL? Is anybody thinking like that? Like, how do we sort of now write GraphQL inside what? How do you like write a GraphQL query? The truth is, you can use your fetch, the same fetch that we use to write the REST. We can use it for what's it called? We can use it for the fetch, normal fetch, MDN. If you go to MDN, right, MDN fetch, right, this fetch that we talked about in the promise class, we can use this fetch as well for what? For GraphQL, but it's it is going to be very stressful in a sense, right? Because now the major thing is that the method is by what? Let's even try it. I don't want to write it. I won't write it. I'll probably just copy this and I'm going to tell you how to write something for me because I don't want. I'm just trying to write it. Right, equal to make this GraphQL API call. This is the structure that I have here. Right, just write me something and give me a fetch implementation as well. Just give me a fetch implementation real quick. Implementation real quick. So this is so you can see this now. This is not what this is supposed to be the one now. I just use fetch this. Okay, so because it's settlement must already post. Post and it is clear this body is to provide of what our copy is. Let's just copy this. We can just copy. There's this and this and this. Let's copy this. My browser. Let's just copy this. This is not my browser. And then if I maximize this browser one more time, and I go to, can you still hear me? Plus, am I still audible? Can somebody unmute and let me know? I think my internet went away briefly. My internet went away briefly. Okay, I think my internet is still here. Let's see. All right, so you can see that what this console.log came back now, and it what came back with what the data and what the array of what 5 data that I asked for. Right. Okay. So that is what using fetch, right? JavaScript code, right? To make what the GraphQL API call as well. So it's just a rough example, and this is using what promise version. And if I want to use like the async and await one as well, I think I can do top level await as well in my browser. So we can take this as well, paste it in the browser. That would also work, and then it will return the same data back to us as well, right? So the promise or the callback, the promise or the asynchronous version. So that is a good example of the difference between GraphQL is very interesting in the sense I like it. In a way I like it because it is descriptive. So you can always describe, you want to search as where is an object. I think we can say search. I think we have to start. We can do search. But we have a search here. Where title, I think I can do, is it title or where name? Yeah, where name starts with what theme or something like that. And this would be, is it this now? Or where name expected? Okay, I think it's expecting a curly bracket. Is it value now? It's expecting value to be what? Is it value to be team or something like that? Is it value or what is he expecting here? Oh, web value is what equals to. So maybe it's expecting equals to. Okay, equals to. Yeah, it's expecting it to be equals to team. So we want to search the BB, that particular API for records. Among that 5, give us a record that contains team. And then if you send it now, so there's nothing that equal or okay, equals, there won't be equal. So we can say contain. Is it contains? No, is it contains? So to know what and what this permits us to do, I think I can do, I do here, this here, and I can class filters. And for the class filters, let's set up in here, you have equals to, not equals to, less than, like, not like, it's, it's nothing like work here. So let's see like, something that looks like, so just for things that contain that contains team or saturating. So empty as well. To skill for that that things like this that contains this I can't remember exactly what to write it. I want to use something like this. I search for T, really look for T or narrative. I think it's just searching for narrative. But if I use otherwise the same thing or underscore or dot that is looking for, there should be a word that I can pass it. So what this description is the context is you can quickly test that again. Stick up 5, then it will look for a for like a where category. I think I can see where is not null. Let's look for is not null. Is not null. To be true, I think it's a boolean, so I can say true here. Where is not null is it's not null is boolean, right? So at least it will give me something because I know that these are the first 5 records in the API or the database that the records are not, the name is not null. But there should be ways to search. I can't remember the exact way to search, but there must be one the highlight. That's what curious. It's kind of like beautiful in a sense. Yeah, the part actually kind of talk so you inside to account inside the last things programs. It has to do that's the relation and the subscription is the last point was find like type to find it as articles to it to find it anything was created and available to us for subscription is kind of very beautiful. It's just like WebSockets. I should be showing you guys WebSockets before in this class. Have I shown you guys WebSockets before in this class? Can you hear me now? Is my internet back now? You can use emoji to let me know if you can hear me. Oh, is my internet back now? Okay, good. So have I shown you WebSocket before? If I've shown you guys WebSocket before, if I've not shown you WebSocket before, if you go to the API again that I provided for you, there's WebSockets, right? There's WebSockets. WebSocket is a way to do real time within JavaScript. There's a WebSocket web API, right, that allows us to do. So, for example, I built this, for you to, be able to play with and try. So you can try it out on your hand. So if we go to this place here, you can see this. This is like a place to test all the WebSockets, amazing stuff. So if you connect here, so what this means is that this is connected to what? Tasks channel. So it means that if anybody creates what? If anybody creates what? A task, you will get notified in this place. And it's just, like I said, it's just very beautiful. It's just, so if you go to post here, and then I set a new task and say play around, and I create this now, right? It has created this record, play around. If I check my where's this code? Check my WebSocket now, it will tell me that what was created is what was created is what this particular task, and what is the name? You can see the name, which is what play around right there. And so WebSocket is like, it's real time. You see that we didn't need to reload this page, right? Do you notice that? Do you notice that we didn't need to reload this page? It was able to get, to just, understand that some update has happened real time. And you can also put a task ID and subscribe to it. Let's say I go and update. Let's copy this ID, and then we go and update this one as well. You also get notified as well. So that is, that's like, WebSocket for you. They are very powerful. They have their use, So if I want to update, I can click on patch. If you click on patch here, you provide what we want to do. Can you see my screen? Once I split my screen to two, can you see it? Should I maximize it? Can you see it? Or should I maximize it? Okay, I don't believe you can see this. So I can, this is the ID here. Add this here, paste the ID. Okay, you can see it. And I can say play around updated. And then we don't have a description for, so I can change this and say, okay, new description. And you can say this is a new description right here, and then you can test this out. And so this has been updated. If we go to the WebSocket again, you would see that it also has task updated with the full record of what was updated. And I was not refreshing. You can notice that, pay attention to that, because we were not refreshing. And that is WebSocket. WebSocket is what is it two direction? Yeah, it's kind of like two direction. You can send and receive information without necessarily reloading the browser. That is a real-time kind of conversation. How many of us were in the class when we tried out my real-time typing tool? How many person were in the class where we tried the real-time typing tool? For those who were in class here, the real-time typing tool was built on WebSocket kind of, right, where people can be in different places, but you don't need to reload the browser before you get the real-time information. Just like your WhatsApp, right? As somebody's sending you a message, you are not reloading the page, and you're able to get the instant message coming in, sort of, right? So that is what WebSocket. So this API also that I built also have WebSocket for you to also practice and learn how to build WebSocket APIs and how to because for a front end, your goal is that somebody would have built these things on the back end, but how do you interact with them? How do you communicate with them? And that's the reason why I'm showing you like all these things, right? A back-end guy would have created some things. You as the front end, they just need to tell you that, oh, this is what you need to do this. And that's the reason why, again, I have this documentation out here for your learning. Right, so please do yourself the benefit to just go through them, right? If you want to, there's more to these APIs that I can talk about. There is absolutely more, but again, to save my time, we need to move to something else and all of that. So if you want to test authentication, we also have some set of APIs for authentication, to create a new user, to log in, to refresh the token, to get the current user. And if you want to create posts, right, if you want to create a product, view the product, list all the products, different kind of things that you can do with different APIs. And again, this is not the maximum thing you can do with APIs. GitHub has API. You can try to play with GitHub API. Who else have API? There are different companies. The different companies, all of them have the different APIs that you can set up and try to play with to just understand. The goal again is to understand and learn, right? And know how to use them in a sense. Learn how to use them in a sense. So that is that. Do we have any question? Do we have anybody with any question? Do we have anybody with any question? But I think that's I've talked about GraphQL in a sense today. I've talked about I think I mentioned WebSocket. The reason why I mentioned WebSocket was because I talked about subscription. It was me mentioning subscription because if you look at subscription here, there's subscription to here, and I built a test playground as well to also try out what subscription. I think I can close this. I can close this as well. So if I go to this place, there's a GraphQL subscription playground. So here, you can listen to task created, subscribe to it. And what this means is that anytime, again, somebody subscribes to, anytime somebody create a task, this place will get notified. And that's subscription. Like I said, subscription uses WebSocket behind the scene. It uses WebSocket combined with PubSub and event meeting. But again, you don't need to know how those things were created. Yours is that when you're a front-end engineer, somebody will give you a endpoint to do subscription with, right? Somebody will give you GraphQL documentation. Somebody will give you a REST API documentation that you would need to implement or use within your project. Does that make sense? So whether we are listening to products being created or you're listening to what, so if I go ahead and create any product, if I go ahead using, but I think if I use any of these APIs that I have here, if I do HTTP post, and I do I just do products. I do products / let's just do the title. Let's try title to be test product. If I press enter, it should say it needs price. Yeah, it needs name and price. So again, from the error that I have, I'm able to decode what the issue is, right? It says what it needs, what price, and it needs what name. So here I can say what name, right? And then price is what price is supposed to be a number. So if I say price and quote it like this, there'll be a problem, right? Because price is supposed to be a number, and then this is the way to send an amount to say okay, it cannot send. Because I am using this like this, I can send this now, and this would go through. So now I have created a product, test product. And if I go down here, so you can see that this page here was notified real time, and it is using subscription behind the scene. It is using subscription behind the scene to do all of that there. So again, like I said, subscription in GraphQL is similar to WebSocket, right? But they're not the same thing, but it's just very similar. But all these are they are tools for real time within APIs. We have WebSockets, we have server-side events, we have pooling. Server-side is SSE. Bit of SSE, there's SSE. I'm already building SSE into this as well, so that you can test your server-side events within my GraphQL endpoint as well. Within this API thing that I'm building, I'm already building that. So it will be ready soon. I don't know when it will be ready, but if you want to see, I think it's GitHub/Oluwashitemi. And if you go to api.oluwashitemi.dev, there's a pending PR. There should be a pending PR, right? And the PR is introducing SSE, server-side events. Right, there's a pending PR introducing this feature called server-side events, right? So once I make an approval and everything is good, you will also see server-side events, right? The place to create real time on your front end is what we WebSocket. We have server-side events. We have subscription through GraphQL. We have pooling, POOLING, right? Pooling, whether it is long, normal, or short poolings and all that. There are ways to pool and wait for a particular work information to come back. But those are ways to generate real-time, behavior within your front end or within your application that you're trying to build here. So again, you can play with all these APIs. They are there for you to learn. They're there for you to write code against and do whatnot you want to do with them. Do we have any question again? Any question before I move to something else? Any question before we move to something else? I could take any question before we move to something else real quick. Any question before we move to something else? Any question whatsoever? You can unmute to speak. You can type your questions if you want to. I hope the API is not too complicated though. For those who have been on the call for quite some time, is the API that I just explained, is it complicated? Can we reproduce some of the things I just did on your own? Some of the things I need, can you reproduce them? If you watch, maybe you get to watch the class back again one more time. Can you reproduce them? Can you? Let me know though. Can you? Can you reproduce them if you try it on your hand? Can you? Can you reproduce them? Anybody? Nobody can. Nobody can reproduce. Nobody, not even one person can try. Is there one person that can at least attempt to try to reproduce all the things I've been trying to do? Abba. Jesus. You guys are making me sad. You guys are making me feel so bad. Did I not explain it well, or something? It's too technical. I did not explain it well. It is too technical. I did not explain it well. Which one? Or it's just because you're just hearing it for the first time? I will have to study the documentation and watch this video again to be able to attempt it. Okay, good. I mean, that's something. For those who are just joining again, I think at the beginning I was trying to show how to write code against this API, right? And in JavaScript, the major way to write code for a particular endpoint is fetch. Is that correct? Is that correct? Like the major way to write what? The major way to write what? The major way to write what code for a particular endpoint is what? Using fetch, right? You can use other external packages like Axios, right? So if you want to use Axios, we have to do npm install Axios. And before we can do npm install, we must have a package.json. True or false? True or false? Before you can what? npm install Axios, you need to have your package.json. And how do you get your package.json? How do we get package.json, right? npm init, right? Whether it is -y, but there must be npm init for you to get a package.json. Then you install your Axios. There are other ones too. I think there is ofetch. There is there's ofetch is you need psi or something like that on UNDCI or something like that. But there are different kind of npm packages that there is got to fetch. But the major one that is built into the browser is called fetch. And fetch is a wrapper for XML HTTP. How many of us know that fetch is a wrapper for XML HTTP, XML HTTP request, right? XML HTTP request is the original way to make API calls within the browser, right? That is the original way to make API calls within the browser, but the code is very long. The code is very long. So in a way, right, and it's not promisified, it is callback based. So that is why what they had to implement what fetch, which is now promise based and support what the callback and await. So again, I think I showed the example of how to use fetch, whether at the promise level or whether at the what async and await. I mean, maybe we can create we can create something around it. I don't know if you guys want to, or I don't know if that will be something. Do you want me to create one example though? One vanilla example of a project that is making API calls? Should I go ahead and create one example of just a simple project that makes API call? This is very simple, nothing serious. Just index.html and yes. Okay, so here we can go to alt school real quick, and then we can cd to front end, and then let's do extra. Let's just say make dir's cd extra class. Do we have extra class before? Okay, let's do extra class 2, or let's just do class 2. Got cd outside, cd outside, rm rf extra class, right? So I want to do make di. Jeez, I've deleted the last one we did. I don't even know what's in there, so it's none of my business. Let's just make another one. Make dir cd extra class, and now I can just create. I think I can do pnpm, or let's just use create vid directly because I have it installed. I could just say create vid dot, and I want it to be vanilla, and I want it to be JavaScript, and I want it to use roll down, and then install, and then install with npm, and then it will start the project. And yeah, so it's starting the project, and if I go to localhost, maybe we can stop the server. If am I sharing my screen? Am I sharing my screen? Jesus. Ah. And I've been talking and talking and talking as if I'm sharing my screen. How many of you were enjoying that already as we were hearing the audio? Oh my God. Do I have to roll everything back again? Everything I've done, do I have to share it again? So here is, if I go to my terminal, I already have like a created application, and if I check ls, you do ls here, you have everything in this. Let's just go outside. Let's cancel and delete everything. CD outside and rm extra class, extra class. So cd out of this place, cd out of this place. And we can do rm rf. And then if I do ls here, okay, we still have to delete this rm extra class. We deleted it now. So I can go ahead and create a new folder, mkdir, right, extra class, and I can cd into that extra class. Good. Then I have create vids as a global, right? If you don't have it as a global, you know what to do. Put mpx in front, and then you're still what? You're still good. And then vanilla, and then JavaScript, and then use roll down or no. You can choose to use roll down. Do you want to install? No, don't install. So now if I cd into this place and do ls here, so what do we have? We have what? Index.html, package.json, public, and src, and then you can do what? ls of src to see what's inside src. So inside src, we have your counter.js, JavaScript SVG, and then your main.js and your what style.js. And then we can open our IDE. I can do teach, and I can do dot to open my IDE. And after I've opened my IDE, I can start my server, and I can do what npm run dev, run my development server. Okay, I can't run because I've not installed. I have to do npm install to install all the dependencies. Yes, because this come here, maximize this here. We should have some set of files, right? You can see some set of files, and then you can see my packet.json. You can see packet.json. Then we can see the index.html that has the entry point of your main.js, right? And then we have the main.js file here, which is what the main entry point of what our application, and like that. So what we want to do is just make API call, right? Just make a simple API call, right? A very simple API call. So we can do what? We can do fetch, right? It's a fetch here. Because I have the URL, right? We can say base URL. Most of the time as well, we can say const. Let's just do a const base URL, base underscore URL is equals to https colon what api dot what dot dev, and you have what a forward slash what. Let's just go to base URL for now, and then we want to fetch from where? We want to fetch from the base URL interpolation, right? Add the base URL, we close the curly bracket, and then we have forward slash where products or tasks. Let's just fetch products this time around. And what this means is that what we can use a dot then. For those who have been following, we can do a dot then, do a tab and a dot then, and then you have what your response, right? And then you can also what arrow function response dot where dot JSON. That is it to convert the response to JSON for us to be able to use. And then for us to be able to use the data, you can then do a dot then again, and you can do what the data that is returned or result, and then you can what do if you want to do console.log, or if we want to whatever we want to do here, we can what sort of do it here. But initially, let me just do what this console.log, and if there's an error, then we can do catch as well. So this will what work right here to make API call. So this is the first major way, right, to make what API call. And if we check on the browser, if I check on the browser, and then we go to, let's maximize this place, and let's do localhost 51 something. The server is not running, so we can start the server by running npm run dev. My short form for my short command for it is D, which is the same thing as npm run dev. Then if we check our port, refresh, then we have elevator, right? This is the one they gave to us. But if you check your network tab, because we already was making a fetch, if you check network and you reload the page, so you will see that what it is making what a call to where API dot what products on line what 8, right? And then we can check the response. This is the request and this is the response, and it is returning what 10. And then what this is the information about what again, and then you can see the structure of what is being returned. Do we understand that? Can I get some thumbs up if we understand that? So at least the first step is what you have a code that makes a API call with this fetch like this. There's a base URL, there's a particular resource that we want to fetch, and this is using what using REST API that we have created, which is products. So another thing is that we then want to have it generate HTML out for us, right? Because it's an array of information. It's an array that contains, I think, array of data inside data. So if you console.log data.data, I think if you do data.data, that should we do data.data and check our data. If you console.log here, we should see what a log of what the array of 10 products that we have. The array of 10 products that we have. And then let's say we want to display this product. Let's assume within our application we want to display it. So it means that with this data.data, right, we want to create what HTML, right? You can see that what with this we want to go ahead and create what a HTML, a set of what HTML for this page that can be what that we can play with. So here at the top here, I can say what we can say yeah, this is the app. We know that is this is the document that create the app. Then we want to create a product. Let's just call it const, or let's do let products or something. Let's just keep it an array of products. So we can then do this and say I don't even want to push products inside with that. Let's just push. Let me just push. So what I want to push in, so this is opening the array here, and this will look through each of the products that we have, right? And I want it to let's see it first before we make any decision. So console.log what product, right? This is now going to be product. And then if we console.log product, that will return an object of what? An object of each of the product, an object of each of the product, an object of each of the product. That's that what is now logging an object of each of the product. Unless I want it to log what product name. So let's see what log product name. Log product name. And then if we go to this place here, we can see it log all the product name. And then we want to create what HTML. So we can now say product div now. Let's just say product div, product, let's just do a let, and then we can say product div or container this is the div of that product now. And then we can create inside of the product, we can also create a UL, right? We can say const what product list, create a UL, right? And then we can now what create what a li, right? A li that append or maybe what we can say here is we can say first thing first, inside of this product here, I can display I can say div dot text content is what loading. So if I run this here, loading here. So what this means is that this div that I created here has this text content here, and I want this one here to what to show it, right? So I can just think I can bring because this is inner.html already. I want to remove all of these here. Okay, so I can just say this the product.div. So if I run this page now, let's also delete this because we're not using this as well. Delete line. So if we run this page now, we should just see loading. I think if you run this page, you're just going to get a page with loading. Div is not defined on which line. Main.js 11. Main.js 11. Main.js 11. Where's 11? So that's product div dot text content to be loading. And if we see that running, we should see loading, running here, just see loading. All right, so if you want to display spinner, you can display spinner. And the next thing for us is to now say, okay, this year we want to create li inside of this place. So we want to create product, create what? The li, and set the what? The product dot content to be what? The product name. And now append whatever product item, right? The li into the ul. This is the ul product. What you see, we are creating this ul here, and then you can have what? The product here. And we can always, so now we now want to see what is on the page here. Let's see, what am I doing? Product list. Then we want to append product list now to be where we then want to what? When this is done, we now want to say what? Append the product div into where? Not even there. I think it should be outside of this place. Just set it to be where outside of this place. Let's delete this as well, so that the product div, yeah, set the text content to be empty and then append it. So if you just look at this briefly, it will be nothing serious, right? So immediately it loads, right? It appends the name of the product. Nothing serious, right? Nothing serious. So this is an example of us fetching something in JavaScript and turning it into what? Your HTML, right? And to make things clean, you can you can use async and await to clean this up, to make this look a little bit more clean and all that. We can use this but it's the same process, because at the end of the day, if you have been following we can convert this to async and await real quick, or we can even turn it into a function. We can turn it into a function, put it in another file, and use that for our teaching. But I don't know if that makes, if what I just did now makes any sense. Let me just stop there and see if it makes any sense. Does it make any sense what I just did now? So to run through it again, right, is what I have. What this div is there on the page. This is the base API that we're working with. We create an array to store our product. Are we even using this array? We're not even using this array yet, but the initial thought was to use, let's say I want to store the products inside. What I can do, push right there, and use that array later on, right? Later on. But this here is I'm creating a div to hold all the products. So this is product.div. I am setting text content to be loading, and I'm now we are what? When the page loads, it's supposed to what? When the page loads, it will product.div needs to be, wait, when the page loads, yeah, when the page loads, it will do this. I think I can even move this up like that. Like when the page loads, it will take what? The product div that is loading now and append it to the whole app, and it will display loading. So at this point, it is displaying loading for our users to see. But I'm also creating a what? A UL. Here at this point, I'm creating a UL, and what the UL would do is what the UL is supposed to hold what LIs of my product. So what I now did is if I fetch the API call, do the rest of JSON, convert the result that came. This would what is still raw, convert it to what JSON, right, for me. And here we have the data, and inside of the data there's another dot data, right? And there's what the data is what the product. And so that's why we're now saying what data for each. That is, this is an array of product. For those who have been following carefully, you also know there's an array of 10 things, right? For each one of them, there's product inside. Then console.log the product name so that I will see you, and push whatever product you even have inside this array so that we can use this array on this line 9 to store all the products. And here we are now saying that what create a li and set the text content to be what the name of the product, and now append the list to where append what the list to the what to what the product what item. That is, I put the each of the li inside what the ul, and after that set our text content of product to be what empty, and what we can what now put the child, now that div of all the product, we can then put what the list, the ul inside of what the div, and that way we have what this will be displayed on the page, what this array of what all the 10 things that is going on, the 10 product that is going on. So does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Okay, beautiful. So that's pure JavaScript, right? Pure JavaScript, right? Is that pure JavaScript? Can we display the image product? Do you think we can use JavaScript to display the image of the product? Do you think so? Do you think so? We can use JavaScript to display the image of the product, because each of the product just comes with what a product image. They come with product image, right? Yeah. Any thoughts? Who can direct me on how to create the image? Who wants to direct me on how to create the image? Who wants to volunteer to direct me on how to create the image? What do you think would be the step to create the image? So we need to see what the structure is, right? Could we see what the structure is to see what the image is being stored as, right? We need to see what the image of the product is being stored as, right? So let's go to products. We get what here to see all the list of the products that we have with the API code here. And here we're seeing what is it post? No, it's get. I'm going to, and then you can get all of the products. And so you can see that our images are here. We are stored somewhere in array and someone else in array. That's another big problem. Like array of images, something like that. So what we can do is product does what the images. You can also upload product images in our JavaScript. So here, as we unlock the name, we can just do product images. And product images will now give us what? If you check product images, let's just close many of this URL that we're not using so that it don't slow us down. Close this, close this, close this. And then you can see now that's what is an array of this, and then we can now see what come up there. Right, we can see what square bracket of what of 0 to get what the first thing. And then you go back there again and run this one more time. Then we should now have what is string, right? There should be a string. Which one of them? Is there a string of each one of them? Oh, okay. So now, who knows what the problem is? It's not working, right? Because it is like what? This is a string. The old images is a string. So how do we convert it to a proper array? So we can then do like if we could do some nice JavaScript, right? And that is JSON dot what pass. There's a JSON dot pass in JavaScript. So if let's just do type of what? If type of product is what? If type of product is what? A string, right? We are looking for the array of something inside, or no, if type of product, let's just do type of product. If type of product dot images is equals to what? Is equals to string, we want to do what? If it's string, you want to do a JSON dot what? Do a JSON dot what? Capital JSON dot what? Dot pass. A JSON dot pass of what? Pass of that whole thing. Right? You want to do a JSON dot pass of that whole thing, which is what? The product dot what? The product dot what? Images. Else, if it is not string, if it's an array, then we want to get we want to get the product. Just do the product dot what? Dot image. There might be a problem here, but probably will let this slide in a way. Or maybe we can do this in a much more clean way, because this is not clean enough for us to use. So let's do this now. Let's put this in a proper way. Yeah. So this is what product images is going to be equal. So if type of this is this, do this JSON or stringify of this, or point to the to this. And now we can now console.log product dot what? Dot images now, and let's see what we have. So now it should now look like a proper array. If we console.log this now and look at what we have. Am I now console.logging? Don't push it. Just do what the console.log of what the image now, and let's see what we have. So what the JSON.pass is doing is that whatever string of that is wrapping the array initially is converting it into a proper what? The goal is to convert it into what? Into a proper array in a sense. Let's refresh this. Yes. Now, so you can see now that what they are now proper arrays now, right? Proper arrays. And then if you now tell it to what? If you tell it to do, if you tell it to do square bracket, the square bracket of what? 0 now. It's not going to give you what? You do. So for the constant array, you can now do what? Square bracket 0, and it will give you the image URL right there. And so this can also be problematic in a sense. So we need to also do like another const, right? Because this can be a const of let's just to product image. So what I want to do is that for those that are not array, that are just ordinary string like this URL already, so it will, so we can now say that product, let me just do product dot what? Product dot final, let's just say final image is equals to what? Is equals to something like this, or what? Or product dot what? Image. So something like this. And once I have this now, so this will work, then I can now create what? Create the image element, right? The image what? Element. And then we can say what? Const image element is what? This, right? Create the image, and then we can set our what? Image.src to be this, and then we can set our product auth name, and we can just, you know, style in a way with this product image, this class. We can use this class to style to reduce whatever the height is going to look like in a sense. And we can then yeah, let's do this. It's suggesting that we should do name, price, and all that, but let's just do image alone for now. So here we can now say below each of the image, we can now have this is the image element, right? Below the image element, this is our UL. So our UL can now contain our UL can contain, Our UL can now contain two things. Like the LI can contain two things. Let's say the LI contains, the LI is wrapping a image and the name. So here, right, create a text node like this. So what this is doing is what? It will append the image first, and then it will then do what? It will create a text node for the name of the product, and then it will then append this to the whole of this here. And then if we check what we have, we should have very large images, yeah, very large images with their name. So there's no styling, right? Very large images, there's no styling, right? So it's still agas and jaggers and that. So we can now do, we can set some styling in the JavaScript or CSS. But since we have this product name here, for our image, and I think for our headline too, I have to have a class as well. So I have what product image and product what list. So I can just put a CSS somewhere beside here to quickly do some styling real quick. Let's just do some styling, nothing too serious. So it's giving me some suggestion. No, I want to cut the height to be this. Yeah, just give me something like this. And object fit is covered. So yeah, let's set it to be 200. 200 is fair. Let's set it to 200 and on this, and then we can. Then item is what? Then the list style to be none, right? Display, and then we can give it some padding. So let's just give it padding of 10 pixel, and let's see what we have. It looks very ugly because of my 200 pixel. It's very ugly. So what we can then do now is like we can pull this into a card. We can pull it into a card where we have the image on one side, we have the name, right, and then we have the other information of the image on. I mean, we can pull it or pull it and use it anyhow. But the key detail I like you to pay attention to, like I said here, is not too much of the styling, right? It's just that the fact that we are fetching this from an API, right? It has the image here, it has what the name of the product here, and all that. So we can we can style and we can keep styling till we achieve we can style till we achieve the best of the best. I think we can put them side by side here. If we take this out, I think if I take this out, that should be side by side, and yeah, it will pull the image and the hairline side by side, and it will look terrible, right? It will look terrible in a sense. So you can then give it nice proper card feel, what you expect a proper card to look like in a sense. But again, this is just, like I said, it's just rough, idea of us doing this. So we can keep styling this to make it look presentable in a sense. But does this make sense? Does this make sense? So we are able to take what a API that contains some products. And I think this is returning just 10 products. Based on what I've taught you so far today, if I want this API to return more than 10, what can we do? If we want it to return more than 10, based on what we have been doing so far today, we can end with that. What can we do to make this API return more than 10? For anybody who has followed and paid attention to the teaching today, what can we tweak within this documentation of this API to make it return more than 10? What can we adjust, tweak within this API to make it return more than 10? Anybody?
The limits.
The limits, right?
And query parameters.
Right, the query parameter, beautiful. So if we then go right into our code, we can just apply it real time in our code and say within this code here, put a question mark here, that's the query, and set our limit to be equals to what? 20. And that automatically affects what the result and what we are getting. And we can also paginate, right? We can now, decide to paginate if you want to paginate and if you don't want to paginate. And, it will give us 20. Do you see that? Right? Do you see that? So is that very, easy or very beautiful? I think I prefer the image to be bigger in a sense. The height has to be better than that. Then we can now say the width should be, let's make the width a little bit 100. And yeah, let's make the width a little bit 100. This should be better. The height is now too much. Maybe we can say 150. 150 in a sense, 150 in a sense, and then it's still going to be much, but we can also add the other information. We need some padding between the image and the name of the product and all that. But like I said, it's just us trying different things out. So you can pull this to whatever extent you decide to pull this to. Is it now using 150 for the height? Okay, it's using 150 for the height. So at least it looks like a normal image. Then some image have some, you see this misalignment based on the length of what the product, right? So you can then styling can adjust all those, up and downs and all that too. But again, have you learned one thing or the other into this class? No. But those who join today's class, have you learned one thing or the other, right? We have a API, then we can write some JavaScript code to sort of like, play with the API to extract out information from the API. Have you learned one or two things from today's session? Or do we have any question? Have you learned anything? Have you learned something? Have you learned something from today's class? I believe, right? Learned, so we've talked about different things: GraphQL, REST, fetch, promise, async and await. We've talked about them, in their different shades and all of that. So I believe that they should be, yeah, they should be helpful to you in your journey. So please check the API documentation, try to reproduce some of these things on your own to see whether your knowledge is on point. And yeah, we will see I will send some update to the community channel as regarding the assignment and what you should do. Can we use limit and pagination at the same time? Yes, you can use them. Yeah, the API is still, you can like I said, we can paginate this easily. We can paginate this easily because this is, we can even paginate this now if you don't mind. Should we do the pagination in a way now? Do you still have some time? And we can do the pagination. Is quite, because the API is returning. If you check the documentation, the API is returning what? The API is returning what? Some information about what? Some information about what? The page, right? The page. So it means that we know that the total pages that we can have is what? Maybe like 1 to 51, right? So what you can do is you can do what a next and previous. You can put 2 buttons on the page, right? We can have what pagination buttons on the page, right? You can just create pagination button. Let's just say pagination buttons of what next and previous. Let's just do their div, and so here it creates a div and then creates pagination buttons. Well, I don't want it to do that. All I want it to do is create 2 buttons. I want to use in HTML. So let's say we have something that looks like this: prev and what, and something that looks like this here. So we can always use this to show this. So if we check the page, let's see what we have here. think we should have, let's just add it here. So you can see prev, next, and all of that here. So the idea is that if somebody presses what prev, it will, prev should be disabled, right? Because as at this first point, there's no, and this one here should tell us what the current page looks like. So what we now want to do is that we want to get, so the moment we fetch the data from the API like this, we know what our we know what and what. Let's just say the default page is. Let's create a variable for the default page. Yeah, current page is this, and total page is. Let's just say total page is 0, or you can just say the total page is this until we make the API call. And here is make this what to be what current page. So here we can now say the moment we make the API call, we know what our total page is going to look like. Total page dot what dot meta dot what dot total pages. And then this will set that page, and then we can, let's even display the total page. Let's say we display the total page. Okay, one of, right? One of these. So let's see if we check the updated, page, it should be one of undefined. So if we don't want it to define, to show undefined, we can say one of, let's see, let's load this page again. We reload this page. Should be one of. Okay, I need to repopulate that page. Sorry. So I need to repopulate the page by saying this and say, what's this page here now? We want to say span dot get pagination number dot test content. Or let's just say this is loading. Let's just set this to loading so that this would look good in a way. We can just set this to initially to be what? Loading, right? So that it's until when our page loads, that's when we can now say document or get query selector of I think by ID, or is it class now? Pagination span. Let's just do page number span, right? And then we can do let's say pagination number span, and then we can do const page number span to be equals to document dot query selector. Just do query selector, and let's just use this here. Should be this. It's a class that I want to paste here. Sorry, it's a class of dot pagination page number. So that is the span. And yeah, so the moment the page loads, I can now set what my text content to be this here. I can set it to be this here. Current page of this. So let me see if this is going to work. Just okay. So when the page loads, you can see that what the page is being updated to 1 of 26, right? And then the idea is that when we press previous will be disabled based on this, right? We just want to add disabled, right? We want to add disabled to it. So if because we know is yeah, we can say this is current page as well. Is there current page in the, is there current page here? Yeah, I think, does the API have current page? I think it's just call page. It's just call page. So we can change this to page, not current page. right? Then has next page. So we can have a variable too that says as next page limit. Then we can have const what is it let as next page, and as previous page. So here we can then also set them here as well based on what, based on this here. And we want to disable the button. So if as next page happens, right, we want to find a way to increase the next page and make another API call, right there. And then if as next page, or if not next page, what are we doing? I just want to disable buttons. So what I can say is next button. We can. So this is a rough example though. So the rough example is that if they click on the next button, that's where you have what this add event listener. When they click on it, make the next API call, right, with some with some updated information like that, and then the same way it will just make the next API call. So another thing I can quickly do is I want to disable the button. Let's just disable the button for me to be sure. If not next page now, so if not next page, or if not next page, if not, or if there is previous page, we also want to do some things in previous page. And the thing is, I don't want to be repeating myself, because whatever I did within this next year, all these things that we did, the same thing that we did here, we also want to do it within this next page, right? So we don't want to duplicate effort in a way. I think the app should be broken, yeah, the app should be broken in a sense, and it should not run because I've broken it. Let's just undo many of the next. Undo. Yeah, so here I have next page, and let's just duplicate this if there is what has previous page. So the criteria is that you want to, for example, now one thing that I know for sure is that if there is next, we want to make sure the button can be clicked. But if there is no next, right? If there's no next, we want to else now, right? Else here, we want to disable, right? Disable the next button. And here, if there's previous, right? If we can go to previous, right? We want to disable the buttons here. So these are just what that is. If there is no previous, right, in this place here, document.query selector that button and put a disabled on it, right? Very so it means that we also want to get the buttons, get the next buttons and what the previous button by their ID. So this is the previous. Okay, we can get them by their class. So since we are using this class here, we can change it to what dot class, right, and dot class. So this gets the button, and we can style. Just style. I just want to style here and say next button is going to be disabled. True, and then you can add a class of disabled for styling purpose, and the same thing to this one as well. Prev is going to be what disabled, right? And then we can add what some styling for prev. And so if we have buttons on this page before, there are buttons here, and then we want to say if buttons is disabled, opacity and cursor, right? Change the opacity and cursor to be not allowed, and allow pointer events to be turned to null. Pointer events to be none, right? And it's still going to be what the same thing for our button, right? So if you go back to this page here, you can see that what the previous button is what is disabled. The CSS has not changed, but it's supposed to change the CSS, right? It's disabled because we've changed the opacity, and then we've changed the cursor, and this is enabled because what is enabled. But the next thing is that if we click on this now, we want to increase, right? Once we click on next, what should happen? Anybody? Once we click on next, what should happen? We're saying now that what our current should be increased by what? That is, the page will now be what? 2, right? And then we want to make what? A fetch API call to what? To the next page. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Right? You want to make what? The next API call to the next right there. So I mean, I could go on and go on, but I need to step out of the house now, right there. So just maybe some other time when we get a chance, we can complete the whole process. But the next major thing is like make sure that this next and previous, they are fetching API calls right there, and this is like you fetch the next page of the data. And so it means that if you look at our code, whatever we have done from here, whatever we've done here, from this below here, creating this image and creating this here, the whole process of this API call, it has to be duplicated again. And that's where we have to now do this same process again and put this into a function that we can reuse to make our code organized and make our code clean. But you can see that everything is just done verbatim, straight one file. But now we can now break them down into modular, right? Create a file for just fetching, to make it clean, create a file that will take the data and return the HTML, right? Create a file that we append the HTML and like that. Also create this little piece of functions, utility functions that we can use within what our work. I don't know if that makes any sense. So we can use a limit and do pagination to make the work look a lot more presentable. Does that make sense? Yeah, I didn't know we were going to go this far. So probably maybe in the next class as well, we can go in a little bit deep. Do you want me to share this repository with you, or what do you think? Do you want me to share this repository with you, or to have a look at it, or I should share it with you real quick before my time. So to share the repository, we'll just stop the server again, ls. I think I can even put it on Vercel as well, but let's just share the repository in case you want to git init, right? Is that correct? So this is initialize git, then GA, that is githard dot to hide everything, or githard FA to hide everything. And then you do git status because you make the commit, equals message, making API calls with formula JS, right? And then we can come this, and then we can proceed right? Create, right? Create a repository. Yeah, create a repository from scratch or push on existing. So push on existing this to github.com, right? And then push it to Oluwasetemi sample repo for teaching, right there. And then we have this there. And then we have this there. We like to push, put the commits there, and then we have this here. And then we can also send this to where we can send this to Vercel to also host on Vercel. You can send this to Vercel to host it on Vercel. I think real quick again, if you're seeing this, you can host this on Vercel. You can do Vercel, let's see, what does this say? Set the one is not yet blessed to us. Right, yes, we watched this project on the link to the existing, yes. And which existing project do you want to link this to? No, I've made a mistake. It has to be a new project, sorry. For sale, set this up. Legitimate project, link to an existing, no, it's a new project. Yeah, extra class is the name of the project, right? The file is here. Auto dictated, do you want to modify? No, we're good. Do you want to add change the additional settings? No. And it's linked. Declare the repository, connect it as well, yes. And yeah, that should be all to host on Vercel. Real quick, real quick. I think so far it's so easy to deploy. And you check this out with like this. You are ready for you are ready for the whole thing. The whole right for the whole thing. Now we just put in the and we just put the the next class. And just socialize right? So creating jokes. My terminal. Do you observe that? Like I'm left my terminal for every of the operation I created, from the Git to GitHub to Vercel. I never left my terminal. So at the end of the day, sometimes you could always use the terminal to your advantage to make your life a little bit much more easy and all of that. So again, as we work together, you will get to see more of all of these things right there. So thank you for joining. For those of you who took time out to join, I hope this has been beneficial to you in a way. Once the recording is up, I can put it on a YouTube and share it with you guys to watch. Bye for now. Thank you everybody for joining, and yeah, I will see